Thought Bubble Audio.
Look, up in the sky.
You will never find the more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
Welcome to Beer with Geeks with Tim and Frank.
Who are you?
I'm Batman.
I am Iron Man.
Your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Hi, Christopher. I'm Nero.
My name is Inigo Montoya.
You're a wizard, Harry.
A couple of guys with a couple of beers and a whole lot of pop culture nostalgia.
Make it so, number one.
Ladies and gentlemen, the Beatles.
Name the dog, Indiana.
Life finds a way.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Now sit back and crack open a cold one, because it's time for Beer with Geeks.
It comes in pints.
Shaken, not stirred.
Great Scott!
I was way off. I knew it started with an S, though.
Hi, and welcome to Beer with Geeks, where two geeks geek out with beer. I'm Tim, and with me, as always, is my man who loves to be told to like things. It's Frank. How are you today?
Oh, I love being told to like things. I love being obligated to have fun.
God, it's so funny that you said obligated. I'm going to write that down. That's really funny.
Interesting.
It will be funny to you maybe later.
Okay. I love things that are funny maybe later.
Obligated.
I also love beer, and I would love to hear about whatever beer you are enjoying
Well,
today.
I hate to disappoint you. I'm not drinking a beer, even though you do
What?
love beer. I know.
Ooh.
What is crazy is that I actually went and got a You Pick 6, like all October, pumpkin, whatever, and I just didn't feel like it this week, so I'm going to be drinking pumpkin into Christmas. That's okay. So I'm drinking another whiskey, which I've never had before. This is Jefferson's whiskey.
Oh, yes. I've seen this.
A very small batch blend of straight bourbon whiskeys, bottled in the McLean & Kine, Louisville, Kentucky facility. It's just got a jolly old picture of Jefferson on the front. And I like Thomas Jefferson for the most part, so I thought that I should try it, and it is really good.
Nice. I've seen that at the liquor store, but never actually picked it up.
It's not very thick. You know how some whiskeys you can be like, it's like not syrup in your mouth, but you know, it's just it's a denser liquid. This one's really thin, like it's already not been watered down, but it's smooth, I guess that way. It's a liquidy liquid. I like it. It's good. I don't know if it would be my first choice to get again. But that's okay. I did get it because it not relates to what I'm talking. It doesn't relate to what I'm talking about with you today, but it could be adjacent. So it was kind of my choice for this evening. Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So is there a particular name, Jefferson's whiskey, but is there a particular name of the blend or whatever?
No, actually. So
just Jefferson's whiskey.
It's just Jefferson's whiskey. If I bottled for Jefferson's Bourbon Company, Crestwood, Kentucky. And that's it. That's literally just Jefferson's.
Straightforward. I love it.
Yeah, it is really straightforward.
Mine is also straightforward. As I have mentioned, I'm clearing out the light beers to get ready for fall.
Clearing out my night beer.
My light beer. Yeah. Getting rid of light beer. And as part of that, I am going to get rid of this Modelo Cerveza Especial.
Modelo's great.
Oh, yeah. I love Modelo. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah, it's it's simple, it's straightforward, but it's a classic, and it's in my fridge. So
great.
Now it's getting in my belly.
Getting in my belly. Get in my belly. So Frank, we're here for what is another rendition of a listener favorite. Hit me with your best shot. Oh, yeah, that's right. We're here for Hit Me With Your Best Shot. I am going to convince Frank, get this, I want to convince Frank to read a book. Or listen to it. I don't really care what you do.
Sure.
But Frank, this is a fantasy book, and I'm going to convince you to read this book.
Okay. Wow, that is threatening.
I know.
This sounds violent.
It's going to get violent. Actually, the book is not violent, but it is action-packed. So, Frank, have you ever heard of the author Brandon Sanderson before? The forgotten Sanderson brother of the Sanderson sisters. We three sisters and our brother Brandon.
Yeah, he does tour guides around Salem.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, well, that's why I thought you might know him. You having once lived there.
Yes. No, I don't know that I have. I mean, it kind of vaguely rings a bell, but I think that.
Well, just interested,
But I don't think it really does. I think my brain is just lying to me. So no, I don't know if I know Brandon Sanderson.
Okay. So
no relation to Bernie Sanders, right? That's a different guy.
No.
Okay.
No, Brandon Sanderson is obviously an author. In maybe like the preeminent fantasy author out there right now. And this book that I'm about to talk to you about is one that I would say is what propelled him forward. Okay.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, and you're going to tell me if you like these things. Okay. So, Frank, do you like the 17th century? It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine. I'm just setting that up just so you have a picture in your head. Somewhere in that time.
I like 17th century history.
Yeah, right? Somewhere in
right.
there. Yeah, okay. That's fine. Keep that in your head. Frank, do you like stories that involve quests, as in like a character's on a quest or a hero's journey, if you will?
Generally speaking, yes.
You like a good hero's journey. Frank, do you like heists?
I do like heists.
Yeah.
I do love a good heist, yeah.
Do you like political heists?
Sure, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Frank, do you like rebellions against evil empires?
I do.
I know. Frank, do you like mysteries that involve some ways the past in archaeology?
Yeah.
Frank, do you like books about, or do you like stories that involve class wars, as in the rich versus the poor?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Do you like likable rogue characters?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you like good action, Frank?
Yes.
Yeah. Do you like fantasy worlds or science fiction worlds, just make-believe worlds that are easy to understand and completely accessible and not over-explained?
Yes.
And Frank, finally, do you like superpowers?
I do.
Yeah. Okay. I thought so. Then this book, Mistborn, is for you, Frank. Allow me to read the back of the book, to elucidate some of what I'm talking about. The mists rule the night. The Lord Ruler owns the world. Once a hero arose to save the world. He failed. Ever since, the world has been a wasteland of ash and mist, controlled by the immortal emperor known as the Lord Ruler. But hope survives. A new uprising is forming, one built around the ultimate caper, the cunning of a brilliant criminal mastermind, and the determination of an unlikely heroine, a street urchin who must learn to master the power of a Mistborn.
Ooh.
Yeah. It sounds pretty good, right?
It sounds pretty good. It sounds a little bit Star Wars, a little bit Dune, a little bit
X-Men. They want us to get into it. It's actually a little bit X-Men.
Sure.
Yeah. And,
street urchin obviously makes me think of Aladdin.
It's got this Oliver Twisty-ish kind of street urchin, but Aladdin actually works. That same idea. So we follow two characters in this book. One of them, her name is Vin. She's the street urchin. Imagine I don't know, Keira Knightley, Natalie Portman in the early 2000s, like Pirates of the Caribbean, Phantom Menace kind of time, like that, just barely 18, 19 years old, that feisty like the kind of feisty, artful dodger attitude.
Artful dodger, yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay. So that's one of your characters. That's your quest character. Well, there's a lot of characters on quest here, but that's your hero's journey character.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
She must learn the ways of the Force, the ways of the Mistborn.
Right.
She has her mentor figure, her Obi-Wan Kenobi. His name is Kel. He has a longer name, but his name is Kelsier, but everyone calls him Kel. And he is the I know what I'm doing guy. I've got a plan for a plan for a plan. I'm the Robin Hood of this story, but also I have powers.
Gotcha.
And you also have powers and learn this way. And so that's kind of the basic, these are the characters you follow. But allow me to explain let me see. So the quest, I'll tell you, is to overthrow the evil empire. Basically,
Sure.
The Lord Ruler is immortal. There's this lower class that, they're the slaves, basically. So in some ways, it's kind of like Moses, right? You have the slaves.
Sure. Okay.
They build up everything. They do all the work. They've existed in this way for 1,000 years. The Lord Ruler to them is God. Like, that's like their, like they swear by his name, like, oh, Lord Ruler. Like, I didn't think that would happen. Like that kind of thing. And
that gives me like Brave New World vibes, where they're like, they swear to Henry Ford, like
kind of, yeah. So I guess what I want to say early on while I'm explaining is that Brandon Sanderson is a practicing something. I want to say Mormon. Could be Mormon.
Practicing something.
He's a practicing something. He lives in Utah,
he's a
so
man
I'm
of
going to
faith.
say
He's
Mormon.
He's
a man of faith. And so the book is laced with that idea of like the importance of religion and like idols versus false gods versus real faith versus truth and all of that kind of stuff.
Truth, justice, all that stuff.
Exactly, Frank. And so anyway, so this guy, Kelsier, he's kind of like Han Solo meets Captain Mal from
from
so
Firefly.
Right. So when I'm, you like when you read something or you watch something, you're like, you imagine somebody like adjacent in your mind to like who might play this character, or you just like like I said, Keira Knightley was like who's in my head. It's basically Nathan Fillion circa 2000 in my head.
Cool.
Yeah. And he's that kind of character, and he's like, we're gonna overthrow the Lord Ruler, and here's my crew of lovable rogues that is going to do it. His newest lovable rogue is this young girl, Vin, and she is also special because she is this thing called a Mistborn. So let me explain that's the quest.
Can I ask a nerdy question? Can you spell that?
Mistborn?
Mm-hmm.
Mistborn.
Okay.
Like quite literally born of the mist. Right?
All one word.
All one word.
Okay.
Yep, that is not really a nerdy question. So I can hold the book up for you too if you
just helps me. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
I have definitely not heard of this, by the way.
So
I'm not familiar with it.
My friend Kevin, who I was friends with in high school, read this came out in like 2005, 2006. He tried to convince me to read it all the way back then, and I resisted up until a couple weeks ago. And I was like, I'll finally read it, and I devoured it. Like I was totally into it because it's so accessible. But anyway, let me tell you about what their powers are. So in this world, if you're lucky enough to be born with powers, you're called an allomancer, which means you can control metal. And so what you do is you can swallow like little bits of metal in an alcohol solution, and different metals give you different powers. And so like if you are born as like a seeker, then you can find other people who have these powers. You could be born as what they call thugs, and you get really strong, like that kind of, like all that kind of way. Mistborns, which are very rare, you can use all of the powers.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit Avatar: The Last Airbender too.
Yeah, actually, I didn't really think about it that way, but yes, those came out kind of concurrently, so I feel like they're not maybe influenced by one another, but certainly along those same ideas. Like you just have fire powers, you just have water powers, whatever.
Right.
But the Avatar has all of the powers.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So what the Mistborns do, they carry like little bits of metal and coins with them, and so they can like ricochet off of little bits of metal and fly through the air and like make themselves strong and influence people's minds and like all this different stuff. And they are super cool, and there's very few of them. And so kind of the big setup is that like this crew is going to infiltrate high society, like pretend to be of the elite to gain information to eventually topple, the empire. And that's where so it's a little in some ways it's like a little Andor right now, if you wanted to like go in a Star Wars direction. It's got that level of like somebody knows something, maybe they're telling the truth, maybe they're not, like all that kind of thing. So but the world is easy to access because it just because Vin is a new character, everything is explained to her. You know, like, oh, you're new to Allomancy? Allow me to tell you what it is. Here's your training montage. Here's your this. Here's your this. But because you have all these characters or these people who can use metal to their advantage, they go like, they're like, well, we can't have swords because those could be used against us. So they carry like wooden canes instead to duel. And like things are made out of wood and stone and everything, very little metal everywhere. And so trying to think of a way to do this without giving everything away. So if you go in like the heist direction, it's like if you go in the or the Star Wars direction, it would be like you've got to infiltrate the Death Star. You've got to, you have to you have to pretend to be part of the dark side to then,
sure. You got to be stormtroopers to get into the the Death Star.
The Death Star. I was going to say Docking Bay 94, but that's not correct.
To get into the detention level.
Correct. That's it. It was started with a D, and I knew I wasn't going to get there. So that's the basic setup. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but
okay.
I do want to say this. I think you like stories that are about more than just the basic plot, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. And so what are you looking for in a story about a heist with people with
long
some powers?
walks on the beach? Oh,
no. No. That's not it.
What am I looking for in a? Sorry, can you?
When you're looking for like a good story to dive into, whether that be a TV show, a movie, whatever else, like what do you like? What are the things that you like? I guess hit upon to be like, oh, this theme excites me, or something like that.
At this phase in my life, it's the kind of themes that like Star Trek tends to touch on, like things about like what it means to be human, like the nature of aging or of being, a parent, or like these are the things that are sort of on my mind in my mid 30s as a father of a 1-year-old, like so sort of the Captain Kirk in Wrath of Khan, or just throughout Trek, right? Like those are things that often recur about like what it means to be human versus Vulcan or whatever,
Gotcha.
Using that as a plot device. Those sorts of things I think are really interesting to me.
Okay, so then let me ask you these questions and tell me if they excite you. Like, so if you were, say, like watching a story and it's about like, what does it mean to be inspired? And what does it take to be a good person? And how do you classify that kind of action? How do you know what the right thing to do is in moments of tribulation? Do you want to see a character that is a combination of Alfred Pennyworth and Jensen?
Yes.
His name is Sazed, and he's amazing. I think that's why I think you would like this, because it's you remember Vitamin Vegemin, like from Isle of
course.
Yeah.
Do you poop out at parties?
Yeah. So my question is like, are you pooped out of superheroes? But you still like that, but you still like what they talk about, but you're tired of like the mass destruction, or something like that. I think that, I think that's what I liked about this. I liked about this book, because you have Vin, who's the young idealistic character. So you get like the, not even idealistic. She trusts nobody, but, you have this, like the fresh eyes appeal that like, oh, I used to think like this. But then you also have the characters that are much older, they're like in their 30s and 40s, and they're like, well, no, this is actually how we think now. So you have these like two thoughts of like what you used to be like when you were 18 and the way you thought the world worked. like against these like, well, it's a bit of a gamble and we're kind of tired, but like we could like let's try it, you know. And then like what keeps you going at that age where it would be very easy to just like disappear and be like, you know what, it's somebody else's problem, right? Because we have that tendency at this age. Like I put in my time, let somebody else do the hard work. And so you get a bit of push and pull that way. Yeah. Does this all make sense? I feel like I've lost my thread a bit.
Let me ask you some questions because I have them. Can you tell me how closely does this adhere to sort of the Joseph Campbell hero's journey, and does it mimic the structure of a typical like first chapter in a hero's journey story? That is to say, does it sort of have a similar arc to, you know, Star Wars: A New Hope or Star Trek 2009, or like does it have a similar sort of arc? Does it end in a, I don't want you to tell me the ending, but does it leave in a you know, we've tied this up and sure there's room for a sequel, but like this is the end of this story? Or is it more of an Empire ending where it's like clearly there's more to come?
Okay, that's a great question.
Or like a Dune Part 1 ending, you know, like.
So it's a full story.
Okay.
So you can finish it, and it's a trilogy, but you could finish it.
That was my next question.
You could finish it and be like, well, that was good. You're like, I got it. But I would say it's like if it's the original Star Wars trilogy in one story. Mm-hmm. Like you smush that entire story. So then the second book is the like, well, now what? You know,
wait. The first book is the entire Star Wars trilogy.
I would say it's like more akin to that.
Interesting. Okay,
yeah. And then the second book is like, well, now what do we do?
Okay, got it.
You know, because you know, like because like we did this bit, but there's like some tantalizing things that maybe we didn't do the right thing. It turns out maybe we did, but maybe we didn't. And it like kind of so I would say that like yes, it does follow the typical Joseph Campbellian hero's journey cycle. He follows the hero's cycle. But it's what I liked, I think, because, you know, like it tricked me. That's what I know stories so well that when a book can trick me several times, I go, dang, that was good. Because it wants you to know it's the typical journey until it gets to a certain point when you're like, oh, wait, you didn't think of that? Let's back. Wondering how we got here. Let's back that up. Or remember when this, and this happened? Well, actually, that's how we got here. And you're like, dang, you got me. Like Ocean's 11. You know, like you watch them leave the hotel, and you're like, they did it, and then they like back up, and you're like, oh, wait a second, that's why they did it. It doesn't do that in its format, but like that's how I felt at the end. I was like, well. You done tricked me good. There were a couple of things that I didn't expect, and you got me.
Earlier today, I was listening to a podcast that made mention of Ocean's 11, and
how strange,
man!
How strange.
I know, and I was like, man, I gotta watch that movie. It's been a long time since I've seen that movie. I love that movie. So when you asked me a few minutes ago, do you like ice movies? Yeah. I was like, yeah, like Ocean's 11.
Yeah.
And so it's funny that you specifically bring up that example because that has been very much on my mind all day.
It is very much like that in its own way, like the crew dynamics and like the plan, like they're called crews. Like they even like refer to themselves as that. Like this is the thing. We got to break into this thing to get.
We got to break into the Bellagio.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We got to go into the funds and like to gate this thing, but it keeps.
There's a fountain.
There's a fountain, but because
literally it's a casino, it's in Las Vegas.
There is a fountain. That's what. Yeah, I mean, they're just reading the Fountainhead. I don't know. Yeah, it's not a heist in the way that like it's not Dog Day Afternoon. It's not like a bank robbery, you know, or something like that. Or Heat, you know, but it is the we need something, and this is how like this is how we make, you know, this is how we make it happen by like you know, weak points here, and that like involves one giant, what I would describe as a heist. Yeah, a con.
A con job.
It's a con
job.
Yeah,
I do love a good con man, lovable con man story. You mentioned lovable rogue sort of character. You were referring to Vin?
No, actually, I was not referring to Vin. It's interesting that you say that. So Vin is like your entry point POV character, right? And then you have Kel, who's like her mentor, right? But he's on his own path of discovery at the same time. But you have these other characters who are on the crew: the Matt Damons, the Brad Pitts, the
sure.
I can't remember anybody else that was in that movie right off the top of my head. But there, I would say the lovable crew, like the people who fill out the star, who fill
Elliot
out.
Gould.
Elliot Gould. Yeah, there actually is kind of an Elliot Gouldish character. But like I said, there was like an Alfred Jensen like kind of combo. So there are other characters that all serve their own purpose. You're the strong man, you're the thinker, you're the
sure.
general, you're the this, and they all go off and they all do their things, but their dynamics are that of real people with real wants and desires. They just don't feel like stock characters, and they don't speak in elevated language, which I think is something that you always like we might think of when we think of fantasies everywhere, but it's just like you and me, baby.
Is it set in a particular? Oh, you said it was the 17th century.
Well, so yes and no. So this is not really a spoiler because I have no idea what happens. But there's another trilogy or quadrilogy that comes after this, but it's set 300 years after this initial trilogy. And I know that one takes place in 20th century adjacent. Like it takes place vaguely in the 20s in its own world. So you kind of go backwards from there, and you're like, it's like the way that they talk, like they carry canes, they have suits and like big dresses with bodices and stuff like that. So
and this is Earth.
It doesn't say it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just the fashion does make a difference because Vin has to learn how to wear dresses and go to balls and all that stuff. So you're sitting somewhere in the 17th century, 17th, 18th century.
So we've got some Pygmalion My Fair Lady there too.
Totally. Actually, that's a really, really good that's a really good parallel.
Cool.
Yeah,
cool.
They quite literally do have to teach her how to speak and how to move and how to wear a dress and Princess Diaries-esque. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All right. I'm into that.
Yeah. Wow, Pygmalion. That's an excellent comparison.
When you talk, so empire, is it an empire on one planet, or is it like an interplanetary thing? Like a Star Wars.
It's funny that you say that. So it doesn't read as really sci-fi or fantasy. Like you say, you need wooden horses to be fantasy, and you need lasers or whatever to be science fiction. Yeah. So in that way, it's fantasy because there are no lasers because there's no metal to make lasers or whatever. So it's just one land. But really, the entire thing takes place in one city. So what I think is what can make fantasy unaccessible is when it hops to a lot of different places. Because you're like, what's that name? Where the hell is that? I don't know what that is. Where are the mountains? None of that matters. This is the city in which the story takes place. That they name it a lot. You know what it is, and then from there, it's this warehouse, this castle, and then that castle. The end.
Cool.
It reads like a television show, or in some ways, almost like a video game. I could easily imagine and now you're this character going on this mission, doing this thing, and getting this thing, and whatever else, getting the MacGuffin that you didn't realize. But I mean, they're not really going for a MacGuffin, but yeah. But the empire nature of it has this Campbellian nature to it. I'll call it that because it's the Lord Ruler is an unknown entity. How is he immortal? What is he like? How is he this powerful? So it's a lot like Palpatine in that way. I just don't know. But it does give you the answers by the time the thing is over, and it does trick you. Like it wants you to go in this direction, and it sets everything up beautifully just for it to be like, just kidding, it's this. You should have known. Why weren't you paying attention? And I like that.
So there's it sounds like there's like a morality tale.
Yes,
to it.
Correct. Which is where I wanted to point out that like Sanderson is practicing whatever he is, right? Because
right.
Clearly, he's interested in the. There's one character, the Jensen Alfred combo, who's like, so he's a thing called a keeper. So they have like, Allomancers are the like we can use metal as like our superpowers. It makes us strong. It makes us fast, whatever. The other side of it is that like they can use it to store information. Like this other group, they're like, oh, I can like read a book. Now it's in this bracelet, and so if I ever need it, I just tap into the bracelet, and now the whole book is in my brain. Like, and so that character, like his specialty is religion. Like he's like, there's only one religion in this world, and it's the Lord Rulers. My job is to make sure that other cultures' religions are met. And so he like basically tries to sell people on different religions. He's like, I think this one would be good for you. Try this one. It's like they like, you know, this culture that doesn't exist anymore, like this, and this, and this. And so at the end of it, the core of it is about like why faith in something is important. Why not just faith in something is important, but why is something real important? And like, where can you put your faith in something that like, and that actually matters instead of something that where you're told matters. So it's like being of this world versus being of the netherworld.
I see. See.
Because it's all wrapped up in Christ figures too, like, you know, like the same idea. So it's like it's circling around all of that without like ever talking about it, much like Star Wars, right? It doesn't actually say any of that. It just is that. That's the story. And I think you'd like that aspect of it.
Because sounds like something I would like, yeah.
I think what I can't oversell is how interesting the world is without being complicated. Like, because I mean, like, because you like sci-fi for, like Star Wars is not of this world, right? There are different rules to it, and like you got to learn those rules. But it tells you over a comfortable period of time, right? You just kind of learn them as you go. And this one does that particularly. Mistborn does that. Like I've never felt. So I'll do it this way. So I listened to the majority of it. I kind of listened and read, but I hate listening to fantasy because they're like names I can't recognize. Places I can't recognize. I don't understand like the rules of the world. And I listened to this and I had no problem following along because sometimes like the names are like Breeze. Okay, I got that. That's easy. Vin is an easy name. Kel is an easy name. Like they're not our names, but they're still easy to grasp onto. You know, Elland is an easy name to grasp onto. Like they're not. So I think because I know you're like I would say not much of a reader, more like you're more of a listener than a reader, right?
Yeah.
So it is something I would say, like argue that it is a great like I'm mowing the lawn. I'm going to listen to this, or I'm going to the grocery store, going to pop in my headphones because it moves. Like, and the narrator's excellent too. It doesn't hurt that he knows exactly what he's doing. Yeah.
What is the name of the first book? Just Mistborn?
Mistborn. Yeah, technically it's Mistborn: The Final Empire. I think. Okay. Because which is. Took me forever to. I was like, well, if it's the final one, is that the final?
Yeah, that sounds
book?
like it would be like book 3 of the trilogy.
Yeah, I'm so confused. But the Final Empire is the name of the empire, so it's like it's the Galactic Empire. It's the Final Empire.
The final.
There will
order,
be no more. Yeah, the final. Oh, yeah, there will be no more. We're the best. Yeah. And it's really good. I mean, like, because like they're like you said, how you feel obligated to like. Remember you said that early. You feel obligated to do these things. There are these characters called obligators.
Funny.
Which is kind of why I laughed. They're like the. I don't know.
Are they like the ones that go around telling people you have to read this and you have to like it?
Exactly. They're like the dark Mistborn. It's like the best way I can describe it. So they're like
okay.
So
like the Sith.
Yes. So if you have the Lord Ruler who is Palpatine, then you have the Obligators that are his Darth Vaders.
Yeah. Okay.
If there's like
Inquisitors, even
the Inquisitors. Actually, that's a good way to do it.
Obligators, Inquisitors.
Yes, you see, this one came first, but yeah, all the same.
Obligatory Inquisitors.
I guess the
Inquisitive
the Inquisitorial Squad, the Inquisition itself came before all of these things, but
truth.
It wants you to make those historical parallels too,
and that was around the 17th century, wasn't it? Mm-hmm.
It's all in the same. It's all in the same time.
It all connects.
It is. So, the reason I really wanted to pitch this to you is because, you're not a fantasy guy. You're not. But I think, this is something that you could actually take in and be like, well, it turns out that I can enjoy a good fantasy. I just needed to find the one that worked for me. And it turns out it was the less is more, the less is more story.
Yeah, less is more. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's how I would describe it. It's like by the time you finish, you're like, that was not just a great story with great characters, and I want to keep going, but I feel like I understand the world without being talked down to or into.
Yes.
Yeah.
I like that. The thing that so often turns me off is not even feeling talked down to, but more like the idea of we're going to mention this once and you got to keep up. Keep up with, there are 37 characters and they're all important and I'm going to mention them once each. And then I'm not going to remind you in any way. I think that's probably my ADHD showing where it's I can't keep track of all these different people.
Yeah.
Or I can't, to be honest, it's silly, but Lord of the Rings is intimidating to me because of so many places and people.
I don't think that's silly. If that's not your bag, that's not your bag. So this one isn't like that. Here are your two main characters. Sometimes the chapters rotate and then 4
what do you mean
or 5
by the chapters rotate? Who's narrating?
Yes, no, it's all third person. It's all a third person, but it's third person limited. So this chapter's Vin, and then we'll see what Kelsey is doing while Vin's doing her thing.
Got it.
Sometimes it doesn't always go back and forth. It's not. It doesn't. But it's and then you have secondary characters whose names are easy enough to remember that by the end you go, okay, I remember these 4 other people.
Yeah.
It's good, and that's really all you need to know. So it's such an easy entry. I've recommended it to a few people already, but for you, because it hits upon the things that you like from other franchises, even if they're in Star Wars land or Star Trek land or superheroes or whatever. It has all of those elements. Kind of in some ways like Doctor Who. Doctor Who has all these things that you like, and then you mush them together, and here you go. Yes. Mistborn can be kind of like that.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, because at the end of it, there might be horses in it, but they don't use them.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So I'd say give it a try, especially if you're I really need a break from my podcasts, or something. Yeah. I need a palate cleanse. This is a good palate cleanse. Yeah. That's it.
That was a good pitch. That was a very good pitch.
Yeah.
I applaud you for that. That was very well thought out and well delivered.
I would say that it was semi-well thought out and just okay delivered. I'm harsher on myself than not, but I appreciate it all the same.
You are harsher on yourself, but yes, that was a very compelling pitch.
Yeah, I think part of it is you enjoy characters that are good for the sake of being good. You can't you can be this is a good person, and I appreciate they're a good person, and they don't have to have this dark crisis of conscience to understand that they are. They just are.
Yeah.
And that's a few people in this book. They're just good for the sake of being good because that's the right thing to do. Mm-hmm. And that just makes you feel good at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Frank, where can the people find us?
You can find us at beerwithgeeks.com. You can email us at beerwithgeeks@gmail.com. You can rate and review the podcast or subscribe anywhere that podcasts are found. Please do leave those ratings and reviews because they do help quite a bit. You can find the show notes for this episode if you want to find links to buy the book on Amazon or Audible. Those are in the show notes at beerwithgeeks.com. And you can support the podcast apart from leaving ratings and reviews. If you want to do something a little bit more, you can head on over to patreon.com/thoughtbubbleaudio, and you can help us pay the bills that keep the show going.
Indeed. Give me money. Anyway, Frank, it was great to see you as always. So until next time, cheers.
Cheers.